Hey guys, welcome back. Today, I think the topic that we're going to be talking about is the idea of craving rest. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I wanted to cover a few things from last time. We took last week off because Jared was getting over a cold, sang in church, and had no voice to record that afternoon. But we're back a little bit late because it should have gone up this morning and we're recording it now, but
other reasons.
Life happens, right?
It's a busy weekend.
Yes. So, from 2 weeks ago, we were talking about being an encouragement online and that kind of idea. And we talked a little bit about leaving encouraging comments. And so I wanted to ask, did you leave any comments on any YouTube videos?
I did not comment on any videos. I didn't really watch very much YouTube in the last couple weeks. For whatever reason. I don't know. It's just been...
Well, you've been on vacation for the last week. And you don't watch... Because you often watch while you're working, right?
I'll often listen to things while I'm working on YouTube. But it's just been... Haven't been working, and when I was working, it was really busy, so then it was just...
Right.
So I haven't actually watched a whole lot of YouTube lately. That's my excuse.
Do you think that when you get back into it, will you comment?
The channels typically that I watch are... I've realized this, are really high subscribers.
Yeah.
And so, you still could, but it feels kind of pointless in some ways then. And there's 50,000 comments already.
Well, they're not moderating their own comments, so yeah, I get that. That's fair.
But yeah, I there probably are some smaller channels that I watch occasionally. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are some. I know. I should. I don't know if I will.
Okay. Sounds good. I really noticed from last week, after we filmed, or I guess 2 weeks ago, how many times the idea of speaking life and different words popped up in my everyday. So we posted our video the Monday, and a couple hours before the Walk in Love podcast went live, and their topic was Speak Life, which is their collection name of their shirts that they're releasing right now. Sally Clarkson's currently pushing her new book. It's actually her husband's. I don't know, it says both their names, but he wrote it. And that one's all about, I think it's called Giving Your Words, and it's about encouraging your kids with your words. And just interesting how topics come up after you've talked about it, when you start thinking about it.
Yeah, you start to notice them.
When you get a new vehicle and you've never seen that vehicle on the road before, so you think, and then all of a sudden there's a million of them. That happens every time we get a new vehicle. So it's kind of cool. I feel it's just a reminder that that's something I need to be thinking about, because it's obviously on my brain and being reminded of it. Okay, anything else from last week or last 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago? No. I have a hard time remembering 2 weeks ago already.
That was a long time ago. Fair enough.
Feels like it.
Then a couple different segments we wanted to get into, a little brief get to know us, get to know what we're into at the moment. First one is a reading, listening, watching. One or any of those that you've been doing. Anything you want to share?
So I've been reading the Wax and Wane series from Brandon Sanderson. The Alloy of Law is the first one, I think. And then the second one, I can't remember what the title is, actually.
So Wax and Wane is also called Mistborn Era 2.
Okay. Yeah, so it's Mistborn, but hundreds of years later, and so it's kind of like Western.
That's right.
Which is really, I don't know if I've ever read a Western style book, and it's not a complete Western, because there's still Sanderson's got his...
It's still fantasy,
his fantasy elements, for sure, yeah. But it's still, it's fantasy elements with,
Western.
6 shooters and all this kind of stuff, which is not something I've read. I know a lot of people don't really like that series, but I'm enjoying it. It's different.
He's willing to do different things.
Yeah. Well, and he writes in so many different genres that it's impressive.
It's all fantasy, science fiction, but I don't know.
But his settings are so different all the time.
Yes.
I feel like he's got so many different worlds that he's built, and then they're often connected in some way.
This actually makes me intrigued. Is there a subgenre of Western fantasy books?
I don't know.
Is that the only one, or is that a thing? I'm curious.
Surely there has to be more. Maybe they're just not very good.
I don't know. I feel like if you write westerns, you don't really... There's not a lot of crossover between fantasy and western.
Not that we've...
Yeah.
It might be out there. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it's not... it's not very popular, obviously. But so I've been reading that. It's been really good. So Tor, which is his publisher, has been... so last month they sent out a link to get the first book for free, and then a couple of weeks ago they sent a link for the second book. So that's why I've been reading them, because I got the ebooks for free. So
yeah, and we only owned the book 3.
Yeah, so now I got read the first one and halfway through the second one, I think. So I've been reading that, and then I've been reading much more slowly the Supremacy of God in Preaching. Is that what it's called?
Is that the John Piper?
Yeah. Now I'm second guessing the title.
It sounds familiar.
But I think that's the title. It's the John Piper one. It's been good, but I read fiction a lot quicker than I read nonfiction. I feel like fiction, if I miss something when I'm kind of just reading and I'm kind of tired, it's not a big deal, but nonfiction I want to spend more time.
Needs more brain power.
I feel like it takes a lot longer for me to get through a nonfiction book. Yeah, and I haven't really been watching or listening to anything new, I don't think. So, you?
Okay, well, watching, we did start, which kind of
triggered
this idea of this podcast when we only watched, was it the intro in one? Or was it 2?
2 episodes.
It on Right Now Media, John Mark Comer has a series based off of his book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And by the time we were watching the second one, they were only, 15?
Yeah, like 10,
less.
15 minutes.
By the second one, I was getting really tired, but I felt like the fireworks, the light bulbs that were going off constantly was...
Yeah, it was like, are you, this, and this? I was like, yeah, check those boxes.
Check, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get a little bit more into that. So that was really the only thing I've watched in the last 2 weeks. And then... I feel like my reading has been in a very dry spell. I'm not really reading anything good. I've stopped a bunch of books. And listening, I also really haven't listened to anything. It's different when you're on holidays, because I feel like I'm out of my routine.
Yeah, regular routines are off and stuff.
And I often listen to stuff when I'm driving kids to and from visits, and they've all not really been doing visits, except one that we did as a big road trip all together, so I haven't, listened to anything. So, the next kind of question, we want to start doing a top 3 on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Top 3 something. I would love to hear if you guys have suggestions for, what kind of things you would like to see in a top 3, because I feel like my imagination is very limited. So we're going to go really basic today, maybe as a bit more of a get to know us.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta start somewhere. And hopefully we'll get a little bit more obscure as time goes on. Maybe one time in the future we will say, what are your top 3 fantasy western books? They can't all be this.
I'll be the 3 Wax and Wayne series, probably. Because I don't know any other ones.
No, I mean, maybe in the future that will be a subgenre you really get into.
Maybe.
So we're going to stick with beverages for today. Do you want to start? Should I start?
I can start. Mine's, so top 3, I have 1 and 2, which are kind of tied.
Okay.
But depending on the situation.
You have one, though, that you consume more of in volume each day.
Yes. And that would be this, which you can't, it's just a mug. But it's Earl Grey tea.
Yes.
But it's not just Earl Grey tea. It has to be Bigelow or Bigelow. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's a certain brand of Earl Grey tea, which, in my opinion, is just way better than all of the other Earl Grey teas. And
so you're very much like an old British man in that way.
I don't have milk in it.
I was gonna say, but you don't put milk in it, so
just some sugar, which I'm trying to reduce the amount of sugar, but I still need some sugar.
I still think it's disgusting.
In the tea. It's so good, so good.
Oh, and your mug.
And my mug makes it even better.
It's a ember mug. I don't know. I bought it last year for your birthday or
Yeah.
Christmas or something.
My birthday, I
So it
think.
keeps it like at the temperature that you want it, so you can just.
It is set for 56 degrees Celsius.
That's lower than I would have thought for some reason. I don't really think about it.
It's just like perfect hot but not burning your mouth temperature.
Okay.
So it'll stay at that temperature for like an hour or two, probably. And it doesn't taste like you've reheated it, which is nice because
yes.
I used to like reheat my tea if I made a cup of tea and then I got interrupted and then it got cold. Then I have to reheat it and then you reheat it in the microwave and it just tastes terrible. But the cup has solved my problem. So that's number one is Earl Grey tea. Anyway, and I'm now just going to go on a rant about this amazing cup because I really like this
Well,
cup.
it's not amazing because the app
The app is terrible. The app doesn't work.
to connect the Bluetooth, it worked the first time. So you got the temperature.
Yeah, it works. So the cup has an app that connects to the cup via Bluetooth and you can adjust the settings, which is ridiculous that you have a Bluetooth connected cup, but whatever, it's cool.
It's fancy.
But the app doesn't work very good because the Bluetooth keeps disconnecting. And so I spent like too much time last week trying to update the firmware of my cup, which is not a sentence that I imagined I would say. But
Did it ever work?
no, it still doesn't work. And so I'm emailing them back and forth trying to figure out how to get it to work. But anyway, it's still an awesome cup because you don't actually need the app for it to work.
Once you've got the setting
Yeah.
right, then you're good to go.
Even without it, I think it defaults to like 58 or something like that.
Oh, just
which
slightly
is-
too warm.
It's a little bit too warm, but and I also like my tea has to be hot.
Yeah.
It can't just be like
No.
lukewarm tea. It's
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, number one,
that was a long rant.
Earl Grey tea. I really like my Earl Grey tea.
You're very particular
Yeah.
about it.
Number two is Pepsi. Definitely, like it can be number one if it's a hot day and I've been working outside or something.
Pepsi from here, not Pepsi abroad where they use
Not real sugar Pepsi.
Real
The horrible
Corn syrup.
Corn syrup Pepsi. Yes, I know it's terrible, but it tastes really good, and it's like my childhood because I remember like I would bike to the store. Like I didn't even live in the town, but I would bike 20 minutes to the store to buy Pepsi, and
from a can.
from a can is top tier for
I'm
sure.
realizing you're very particular.
Yeah.
Not from a bottle,
Well, a bottle's okay.
but I mean,
But if you're gonna be, it has to be like ice cold, back of the fridge where it gets the coldest from a can. That's.
I'm realizing how high maintenance you are here.
Yeah, very high maintenance.
I've just slowly gotten used to it. Okay, I'm very curious about number 3 because I could have told you 1 and 2. Like I knew that. What's number 3?
Number 3, I don't actually know. I think it probably depends on the situation. I would say like if we're not gonna go like water, because I mean that's kind of lame. I hope yours isn't water.
No, but like a couple of years ago it would have been.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, water's good. Drink water. But as far as, like, other beverages, I would say probably iced tea is
Oh, yeah. I didn't
like,
even
as
think
far
that.
as frequency of drinking it. You don't have it very
like
often.
from powder.
Yeah.
Not from tea.
No, not, like, actual iced tea. So, like, hot tea, good. Hot tea made cold, bad. But, like, the knockoff iced tea that you make from a powder and just mix it, that's the stuff. Again, childhood, that's what we grew up. I grew up with.
Me too.
So I would probably say iced tea, I guess, is number 3. I'm probably going to think of something later, but
Okay.
yeah.
I feel like this is a long time for a top 3. You got very specific.
Very particular
yes,
about
yes, beverages.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, definitely hot cocoa. I feel like I've been very open about that on my channels, and over the last few years I've really figured out like I need a specific. I'm becoming okay. You're rubbing off on me.
You think I'm high maintenance, you need a certain kind of vanilla,
Yeah.
you need a certain kind of cocoa,
Yeah, a certain kind of milk.
certain kind of milk.
But that I blame you because you had all that first for your stuff. So
Mine's just a tea bag that I put in and pour hot water in, so.
no, but you can't do sugar before your tea bag. And
Oh,
like,
that'd be weird.
well,
Do that.
well, I don't know. Maybe your tea bag's downstairs, so you put the sugar in first.
Oh, no. Never. Anyway, we're talking about how high maintenance you are now.
Yeah, hot cocoa, cashew, vanilla cashew milk, Silk brand. I don't know. The cocoa is from Costco. Whatever they have starts with an R. and no name vanilla, like artificial vanilla. That's what I like. And then number 2, I wrote down, because it's summer, I've been doing strawberry bubbly with like a rhubarb syrup that I make. Because bubbly, it's good, but it's missing the sugar.
Yeah.
So I include a very sugary syrup and just make my own pop, pretty much. But I normally, carbonated drinks hurt my stomach, but this way it doesn't. So
Do you still take out some of the carbonation, like just try to mix it around first?
Yes, but I've tried to not, and it doesn't matter. It still doesn't hurt my stomach. Not like Pepsi does. Like, I like the taste of Pepsi, but I can only have like a sip or two, and then that's enough. But yeah, so that one, and then Fanta from other countries.
Yes.
This is where you need the real sugar.
Yes, glass bottled Fanta from like Mexico or
Grenada. We've had it in Uganda. Like,
pretty much everywhere outside of North America, it seems to be good.
yes, and I don't know how much is like the idea of like we have this when we travel.
Maybe.
But it's amazing.
Yeah.
I was telling the kids about that the other day. That's what made me think of it. So I haven't had Fanta from a different country probably since we were in Mexico. Did we have it then? That was
I'm
probably last
assuming
time.
we did.
And that's been 4 or 5 years already. So yeah, okay. Well, that was a long time talking about beverages. Apparently we are much more high maintenance than I realized.
High maintenance, just particular.
Okay, but cheap. Like, we don't drink alcoholic beverages, which means like we save a lot of money that way.
True.
We got cheap, particular
Cheap
tastes.
Not even like the high-end vanilla, just like the cheap vanilla.
I've tried real vanilla. I don't like it, so it's good. It's good. No Name is probably the cheapest vanilla you can get. Okay, so then let's talk about this idea of craving rest. For the last few years, every year I pick a word for the year. And every year I keep hoping it's going to be rest. Like, but I feel like God puts a different word on my heart, and it's not rest or anything to do with rest. This year I spent last week trying to remember what my word for the year was. And apparently it's joyful. For a while I was like, is it rejoice? I couldn't, yeah.
Same general theme.
Yeah, but for a while
Joy.
I couldn't remember it at all. So, it's joyful. And I feel like I have failed that completely, but first of all, I thought maybe we could just like talk about how big of a failure I am today, but I think we'll move on and we'll kind of talk about this idea of rest. And I didn't realize when we started this video series, the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, how much he would be talking about rest. I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
But that kind of surprised me that after I've been craving rest so much that we unintentionally started this thing that focuses on it.
I think it was a different take on the idea of rest that kind of was like a light bulb type moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it wasn't just like, it's not like, oh, we just need a break from life. Like, life is kind of crazy right now with just the fostering situations being up in the air, and that's, I think, been the biggest driver of that desire for rest,
Mm-hmm.
at least for me.
Yeah.
Where it's just, it's not even a rest from doing things, it's just like a mental rest of like, there's a lot of
like the
emotions
idea,
and
even just like how many kids are we gonna have in a month.
Yeah.
Just rest from that idea.
Yeah. Constantly thinking about all the different possibilities of what might be happening in a week from now, or 2 weeks from now, or a month from now, or 2 months from now, and I think, yeah, so a rest from that.
Yep. There was like a really good quote that he mentioned in the video that he actually quoted somebody else. I don't know how to say his name, but
Cordero.
It's apparently from the book Leading on Empty, but this hit me so much. It says, there is a difference between isolation and solitude. Solitude is a chosen separation for refining your soul. Isolation is what you crave when you neglect the first.
Yeah, so I think, when I think about rest, the immediate thought is like a vacation, or like just time to yourself where you can just do whatever you want to do.
We're introverted, in case you couldn't.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, we haven't gone on a vacation really for a few years. But, I mean, we do have time
Mm-hmm.
to do things we want to do sometimes. Like, it's not like we never have time to do that. But it never feels like like rest. Like you never feel completely rested
Yeah.
after that, and then it's like, oh, this is like, it's kind of like you're seeking rest in the wrong way.
Yeah.
Kind of, right?
Well, it wasn't until this quote that I was like realizing how much I would actually feel like I'm craving is isolation, because I haven't been getting the proper kind of rest.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you talked about like just spending time away
Yeah.
from.
Well, in the video he talks about how he lives in Portland, and they've got like this beautiful park in the middle of the city, and he tries to go there like, I think he said like an hour a day. It doesn't have to be an hour a day, but just being somewhere quiet or in nature and just taking time to do nothing and
Yeah.
listening to what God has to tell you, enjoying what he's created. And that's very different than what I thought I was craving. Like,
Yeah. Well, I feel like sometimes when you have the time to relax or rest, there's all these things that you want to do, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, I gotta quickly like multitask my rest. So like listen to something and watch something, or like do all these things at the same time so that you can get your fill of rest.
Yeah.
But then it's not restful at all.
No.
And what we really need is to just like step away from those things and just spend time with God, and like allow him to speak to you, spend time talking to him, and like just get away from those things that are ultimately distracting you, even if they're like restful things.
Our rest has become a chance to like check all the boxes, which is completely the opposite of what we thought we were doing when we were resting, is like get these things done that we want to do. And yeah, you're right. So we crave. And he talked a lot about how in the Bible Jesus shows us his example of rest, because he's constantly getting away and having time with God, and he spends time each morning pretty much like...
It's a time in solitude, right? Like
yes, that's the word.
He kind of always compared the solitude with isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Jesus spent a lot of time, like he was very busy, he was doing a lot of things, but he always spent time in solitude as well, and like that's something that I think we've lost. And like it's easy to have the excuse of, well, I'm busy, I have, we got young kids or whatever, but I think everybody has some time. Like it's becoming more of a pet peeve in myself as well, but in other people, of people saying like, oh, I'm just too busy.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And like I do it too, but it's like, I mean, everybody has the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Like everybody has literally the same 24 hours in a day, and we all choose to spend it differently. And like when you hear someone say, oh, I don't have time for that, but then like they binge watched the entire season of whatever show on Netflix that week, it's like, well, you do have time, but you just choose to spend it differently.
Or this goes back to like a sermon that we had a while ago, about laziness, and then using work as
being lazy by working more, basically.
Yeah, so some people may say that they don't have time for it because they're doing this very important thing in their mind, but maybe they don't need to be doing that. Maybe they're just using that time not as wisely as they feel like they are. I don't know if I make sense that way.
Or I think sometimes you can use the excuse of being busy or working to avoid doing things that you should be doing instead.
Yeah.
And not that you shouldn't be working, but sometimes it's like, it's the example is like, the guy working overtime all the time so that he doesn't have to deal with family issues at home.
Right.
Or, be a leader in his home. It's that kind of idea. But I just mean like everybody has at least 5 minutes a day where they can just be in solitude and just stop for a little bit.
Yep.
So that's been kind of, watching that has really made me rethink how I use the time that we have when we do have that time alone, or when the kids finally have gone to bed, or they're actually busy doing something.
Or something we've kind of started doing in the last few days is kind of that pre-bedtime time, giving each other a little bit of time to have some space.
Yeah.
Well, the other one is Whoa, supervising. Hopefully that wasn't a child falling. Unlikely. Yeah, and you made a good point when we were talking about this after we watched that episode about how we've been given rest and how Jesus,
Yeah, like ultimately we have ultimate rest. Like we don't, I feel like if we didn't have rest in knowing that Jesus is in control, that he has saved us, that, I mean, we don't have to be stressing about all these things because we have Jesus ultimately. And so that underneath all of the stress and the busyness of life, we do have that rest where we can always be secure in that.
Yeah.
And I think without that, the last several months would have been a lot more difficult to go through.
Yeah.
But, and so, yeah, I think there's always need to remember that we do have rest, but I think we need that solitude sometimes to remind ourselves of the rest that we have.
Yeah.
Versus just trying to find our own rest by, cramming in 5 hobbies into the half an hour that we have which is what I would try to do, right?
Yeah.
And so the answer to feeling rest, I think, isn't to cram more stuff that we enjoy doing into the little time that we have. It's to just find that time in solitude where we can just actually rest in Jesus.
Well, and it's like the society's feeding us these lines now about how self-care, how we're going to get our rest through self-care and going to the spa and pampering ourselves.
Yeah.
But that's not going to be, it's not sustaining rest like Jesus gives us rest.
No, because then you're always just looking for that next, the next
spa
hit
day, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. But there's an aspect of it's not really self-care the way the world sees it, but it's kind of like self-care in that you do need that time in solitude with Jesus, that's you do need to spend time, dedicated time in reading the Bible and praying and just letting God talk to you, and just in that silence. It's not about needing self-care so that you have your glass of wine and your whatever.
Yeah, I feel thinking about this song we used to sing in Sunday school, read your Bible and pray every day and you'll grow, grow, grow. Definitely remember standing on the chair and then you stand on the table and you try to get taller as you grow. But I feel like it's something that's not really talked about from the beginning, reading your Bible and praying is spending time listening to God.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe that's where we get a lot of that rest, but somehow that just wasn't shared with us as we...
Yeah, it's hard because, whenever I'm silent, at least, then you get away from things, you just have time of silence, and all of a sudden your brain is just it's just going everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so it takes time to stay in that state for a while, I feel to let things kind of settle down, because we're so not used to that. Mm-hmm. We're always distracted by something.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a practiced thing as well. Main takeaway is that everybody has at least some time to rest, and I think it's what we need to evaluate is how we're using that time, how we're trying to find our rest.
Yeah.
Are we trying to find it in doing all the self-care type things, or is it that time of solitude where we can actually have time to hear from God, to talk to God without all the distractions around us? So that's what I'm trying to work on with my time of rest, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd like to hear how you guys find time to rest. If this is kind of coming at a good time, I feel like that video was for us, or for me at least.
Yeah, me too.
Let us know how you kind of work that into your life, and thanks so much for joining us again.